Welcome back to the Backlog. And this month is October. So it's time for spooky season. So we're going to do something a little gross. So I made this out of duct tape rolls and expanding foam. First we got to dump out our extra bits. And sometimes you can't use all the pieces, but you find a good home for all the pieces that you can. Now we gotta find those pieces a good home. Everybody needs a good home. And here we're gonna find it. Just put it in. Sometimes you gotta change it around. Glue it in. It finds a good home. It never hurts to experiment. You can always change it later. That's the good thing about this PVA glue. Long working time. Just find a good spot for it. The best thing about this project is you don't have to be exact. Just let your creativity flow. Just put it anywhere. Make it look as bulbous and grotesque as you want it to. This is your world. This one's mine, but you can always make your own. Now you mix up a nice batch of Mod Podge and black paint. This is good sealant for the foam when we go outside to prime it with a rattle can or spray paint. Spray paint uses a solvent that really melts all this foam, so it's better if we protect it. So really just liberally slap it all on there. Sometimes you have to do a couple coats. Just make sure all this nice texture is protected. Now we gave the project a nice zenithal prime, which means we covered it in a nice black spray paint and then came over it, the top of it with white from up above. Made it look like a black and white photo, like the sunshine was shining on it, where the shadows would lie and where the bright spots are. After we did that, we covered it in a nice brown wash, and then we're going to come over it with a nice green. Get it nice and really just gross looking. Since it's October, we always got to just cover it in a nice orky green. Now we're painting a nice, really just fluorescent green, a nice neon green, to give it that kind of alien look to it, something not natural. Now what I wanted to do was I wanted to get the green into sort of a flesh color. That's kind of why I started off with this white. It really wasn't a good color. It was too contrasty. It didn't flow from the green to the white very well. There was no blending or no shade in between. It went from green to white and I didn't care for it, so I came back in with one of the neon greens and kind of toned it back down. After I got done with that neon green, I came in with a yellow ochre color to try and even out that shading between the white and the green, to try and give it a better blend into the bright white color. I really want the white color for that contrast. Make it really look like stretched material, some kind of organic material. Now to get back to that white highlight, I really wanted the base colors to be in the white, so I put a little bit of the yellow ochre and some of that neon green in there to give it a nice well blend when I put it onto the piece. Now here's the bravery test of the project. We're going to cover it in a nice red, really just dark barn red, water it down to a wash, and then we're going to layer it over everything. This will darken down the greens, make this light color a lot more flesh tone. It's going to bring a lot of life into it. This is a nice lesson in, if your players aren't going to see it, don't paint it, because if you paint this whole inside, you're just going to be wasting paint. So I really only painted the inside first ring and a little bit of the second ring to really sell the shadow. Now when we're painting the outside of these pipes, these silos, whatever you want to call them, I went with a nice black. It really is a neutral color. You can kind of build up from it, especially with acrylics. It's very easy to paint on top of them once they're dry, so usually getting a nice dark color is good for the shadows. The black can really sell a lot, so you don't have to paint a whole thing. You don't have to wet blend or layer on a bunch of paint, when a nice black will just give you a good shadow. Now we're gonna add a nice highlight to these silos. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pick out your reflective line, or this is how I did it. You can do it any way you want. These could be cement. These could be all metallics if you want to, but I don't really have metallic craft paint, so this was the best I could do. So I went in and picked out where I want my highlight to be, and that's where the lightest color is going to be in the end. So I started with my next darkest color, this sort of pavement color, and I'm going to layer it on. Get about as far as I can on each side with it, but keeping the black in the dark. Keeping it nice in the shadows, because you don't want to lose the shadows. We worked hard for them. Now with every layer, I added some nice gray to the pavement paint to lighten it up, to really sell that the middle is going to be the highlight. This is probably the best way I can describe layering, at least in this video. When steel's exposed to the elements for a long while, it likes to corrode, which usually makes this nice orange-brown liquid we call rust. And so we're going to add some of that. We take a nice brown, a lightish brown, get it real wet and real watery. I want it to be almost a wash. And then we're going to put it on the outside of this silo. Now you have to make sure your paint is wet and your brush is wet. If any of them are dry, this won't work. If you want it to go lighter, you're going to drag from the light and go to the dark. If you want it to be darker, you're going to drag from the dark to the light, and you're going to make it a nice mix. Sometimes you'll have to add more dark, and sometimes you'll have to add more light, and you can always fix it when it's dry. My brother said this really reminded him of toxic waste, and I really don't know to argue with him. This project is kind of a Jackson Pollock painting. You kind of see what you want in it. That's why I kind of like this project. There's no perfection to it. This is all just going to be sporadic and creativity. You can't make this look perfect, so you just make it look like you want it to. here's the best part. Now we're going to do some flocking. Well, not really flocking. It's going to be my favorite part, where I spread some PVA glue and put on some nice decorative black sand. I really didn't know where I wanted this to be set, and I just have a lot of black sand. It's always nice to kind of have a neutral base color, just because it'll work pretty much anywhere. Overall, I think this project went pretty well. It went a lot longer than I meant it to. I really didn't know what direction I wanted this to go in. I still don't know if I have a good name for it. I feel it's pretty multi-purpose. You can use it for Warhammer 40k, a D&D setting. I think this is a pretty good piece to have, especially if you're going to do a horror theme. Now for the final reveal. Happy crafting. Have a good day. Goodbye.